V'yehi hayom, and it was that day. Vaya melech echad, there was one king. Vaya bone lo palatin al hayam, he was building palaces on the ocean. Ki sham huta be'enav livnot palatin mechamat avir hayam, because there it was good in his eyes that he was able to build these palaces in a place where there was really amazing air which was hovering over the ocean. Vasvino tolchim sham, and there were boats that were constantly passing by there. So he was a smart guy. It was good business to set up a tourist destination. Vehi hainu bat Kesar, and now the daughter of the emperor is on the sea by herself with that ship that she released with all of that unbelievable merchandise and all that amazing wine. And now she's by herself on the ocean, and she's traveling through the ocean. She's going on the sea. And she ends up drawing close to these palaces of this king. And the king saw the ship. And saw that this ship didn't have any... there were no people who were running the ship. There was nobody who was guiding the ship. There was nobody at sail. He just saw this ship, which is very unusual. There was no men on the ship. He thought that he was making an error, that maybe he was seeing an illusion. So he commanded to his men, that they should gaze deeply. And they saw the same ship that he did. And they also saw that there was no men on it. And she was drawing close to these palaces on the ocean. Afterwards, she gathered herself. Lama la palatin, and she's wondering to herself, why are there these palaces here? But then she decided to keep going. But when that happened, the king sent for her. And to return her and bring her to his home. And this king didn't have a wife. Because he wasn't able to choose one. Because whenever he wanted to marry somebody, she didn't want to marry him. And whenever somebody wanted to marry him, he didn't want to marry her. Both. And when they brought the daughter of the emperor to her, Amrullah, she said to him, Shishavala, that he needs to promise her, that he's not going to touch her until they get married, like is according to the law. V'nishbala, he promised her. V'amrullah, she said to him, that it's fitting that he shouldn't open up her ship. V'lo yigaba, not even to touch it. Rak shetamod kach alayam ad nisuyin. Only that it should stand in its place on the ocean until they get married. Va'az yiru hakol, and then he'd be able to see everything. Ribuya sechura shavia, all the unbelievable merchandise that she had on this ship. Laval yomru, shilakach isha min hashuk, so that nobody should say that he got this woman from the shuk, but they should know that he found somebody very, very special. V'yivtiach laken, he promised her. Okay, so here's the first point that I want to bring out. I had to do a lot of meditating on this this part of the story to try and figure out what is really developed right now and what is it that we want to take for ourselves. So one thing that came up in my Hiboda, dude, was the fact that this is the first time that she's been on the sea ever since her husband left her, which, like we've said so far, that the husband represents the tzaddik emet, and his leaving her represents his departure from this physical world. And then she is on the beach by herself, soaking up in his Torah and his wisdom, applying his advice to the best of her ability. When she's thriving, she herself is growing closer and closer to Hashem, and she's helping others on the beach do the same. And then when she's struggling, she's going up to the top of the tree and hiding in there, meaning that she is living with simple faith and her belief of the tzaddik and her belief of his Torah. And it's b'davka, specifically those times that she's struggling, to be able to internalize that wisdom that she was gathering while she was flourishing. And then she was taken. Now, up until this point, she had never been back on the ocean ever since she had been in that boat with her husband. And now, after everything that transpired with her, where she is taken against her will, where she is coerced, where she has to come up with some type of unbelievable plan to be able to get out of this whole situation. And like we spoke about in last week's class, that she was able to extricate herself from there through a din tefillah, through a judgment prayer. That she used the intensity, she used the force against her to be able to draw out of her a prayer which came from the well springs of her heart. And that prayer itself not just released her from the difficulty of the situation which she felt so constricted by, but that she was able to actually release souls who have been imprisoned along the way. And we got to understand an unbelievable thing, that this was the whole reason why she was taken in the first place. That not only should she be able to get to a higher place, but she should be able to release all of these souls who wouldn't be able to get out on their own. And how is she able to apply this din tefillah? How is she able to have enough faith to scream out to Hashem in this place of constriction? She did it because of all that time on the beach, that she was spending time in the night while she was going through difficulties, not letting go of the tzaddik, stubbornly holding on to his advice, to his wisdom, falling down, getting back up. And then when she has these moments where she's feeling good and feeling inspired, going out to others and trying to mechazik and encourage them, she's used all of that, and at the time that she needed the most, like Rabbi Nachman always says, that all these things that you're doing is building schut for you, it's building merit for you. And ultimately at the time that you need it the most, it's all going to gather together and everything is going to flip. So in this case, it all flipped b'schut the din tefillah. So where did she get the koach to mamish gird her loins and scream out to Hashem, despite the fact that she is now in a more precarious situation that she has found herself in recent memory? And the answer is, it was because of all of that toiling that she did before she got on the boat. And now, what I came out with is something unbelievable, because we spoke about in previous classes, what is this boat and what is the ocean? So we explained that the ocean, according to Rav Kivak's Talmud, is the Yam HaChochma. It's the ocean of wisdom. In Kabbalah, this is connected to the sphere of Chochma. The sphere of Chochma is the place where the light of the Ein Sof begins to reveal itself. Like the Pasuk says that Hashem created everything bechochma, right? All of creation is filled with this Chochma, and it all is coming from the sea of wisdom, the sea of Chochma. However, despite the fact that this light of the Ein Sof is only good, and it's literally the life force which is infusing everything in reality, it is the good that's in this world. But because it's so intense, because it's the light of the Ein Sof itself, we can't see it as it is. It's too much for us. We don't have vessels to be able to receive such a light. So how do we receive such intense light, such goodness? We need a vessel to be able to receive that light. And that vessel, Rabbi Nachman teaches, is emunah. It's tefillah. It's simple faith. It's faith that there is that chokhmah. Now this is the big chap from the first Torah Likutei Moharan. How do I be able to make a vessel to receive that light of chokhmah, that light of the Ein Sof, that wisdom, that goodness which is concealed within everything? By believing in it. The first step is believing that there is a hidden good in everything. By believing that there's a hidden good in everything, I create this boat. This boat allows me to traverse the sea, so that I'm able to actually see the wisdom eventually in each thing. But that takes time. That takes a lot of toiling, that takes a lot of effort, takes patience, takes going up and going down. but ultimately the boat is created by the faith, the belief that there is a good which is hidden in everything. There is Hashem which is hidden in everything. There is a piece of God in every single Jew, right? So, but it starts with belief. That belief is the boat. In the past, that boat that she was on was really in merit of her husband, the tzaddik. That she was taken on a free ride. Like everybody who connects to Rabbi Nachman in the beginning, they have this unbelievable arousal, this transformation, this excitement, this inspiration. And all of a sudden, like they feel like this unbelievable faith in Hashem. They want to go speak to Hashem. They want to learn more Torah. They want to connect to Jews more. They want to help the Jewish people. They want to be able to really connect to their soul, right? So all of that is in merit of the tzaddik. We haven't really made our own personal kelim yet to experience that. It's like a free gift. And now the tzaddik is gone, so to speak. And we don't have the ability to have that level of faith. So we're on the beach and we're training ourselves. We're in a training program. We're in a, what do they call it? It's like those military training operations. And we're going through different challenges in our life, and we're trying our very best to sit with that Torah and to live with it and to try to help others do it. But we're not on that sea of chokhmah anymore. We're not on that sea of wisdom anymore. We don't feel that light of godliness which is permeating things like we did in the very beginning, or at least we don't have the belief, that strong belief that we did, or what felt like strong belief then. And now in an unbelievable twist, besides the fact that we said that now that this daughter was able to release all of these captive souls around the world, and was able to release all of these prayers that have been trapped by the Sitra Achra, hers and others. So you would think that that's it, right? That itself is enough. Dayenu, it would be enough. But the thought that I had was, she's on the boat again. That in merit of this din tefillah, in merit of getting captured, in merit of going through this tremendous trial in her life, where it seems like she's in a situation against her will, and it couldn't be more scary, it couldn't be more difficult, it couldn't be more overwhelming. And it's in merit of that exact situation, and through the din tefillah that she did there, by applying a deeper level of faith than she ever has, she is able to actually be back on the sea again, the sea of wisdom, the sea of godliness, and to be in a boat that's filled with unbelievable merchandise, which is really the prayers of all the Jewish people that were released, and the souls of all the people who would convert and begin to do tshuva as a result of her din tefillah. And she's with all of that on her own in the ocean. So this is the first thing that I want to take out. Hashem wants us to be able to have our own boat. He wants us to be able to have our own faith. And it's not something peripheral, it's not something extraneous, it's not something superficial. It's something very, very deep. And it's something which brings blessing to everyone around us. And it's that boat itself that she's able to get back onto the sea with. And she's riding it her own. In all this time that she is like, why am I alone? Why did the tzaddik have to leave me? Why do I feel like I'm doing this all by myself? That was when she was just on the beach. That looks like a picnic compared to what happened to her on the ship with the pirate. But we have to go back and ask ourselves, what is rachamim? What is real compassion? What is real empathy? If you're a parent and you have kids, who is a better parent? When the child is on the floor, he's a baby, and he's walking him across the floor, and that child is smiling. Unbelievable. And now every time that the kid wants the Abba, he starts to cry, and the Abba, the Ima, comes over and starts walking them across the floor every time. But then as a result of that, he's not able to learn how to walk. He doesn't know how to walk on his own. He has to continuously cry to his Abba and Ima, and to have them walk the kid. Or there's another way, but this way has a stage of bitterness in it. Like Rabbi Nachman teaches that all peace is preceded by bitterness. And in this case, the father, which seemingly on the outside, if you just had one of those live cameras, you call the police. What type of cruelty is this? That in the beginning, he walks the baby across the floor. And then when the baby starts crying, that father does not pick him up again. And the baby's crying and crying and crying, and the father's just watching. And the kid is thinking to himself, what's wrong with my father? Why did he pick me up before, and why isn't he picking me up now? And through that level of internal consternation, and that yearning to want to walk, and that confusion itself, that baby actually learns how to walk on his own. Now, how does he know what it looks like? He knows what it looks like because his father helped him the first time. But now he's actually walking on his own. Now we have to ask ourselves, what is greater compassion? The first one, who comes every time that the child cries, and then as a result of that, the child's not able to know how to walk on his own. Or this child who now knows how to walk by himself, and he can teach others how to walk. So when the Torah speaks about tzedakah, charity, and tzedakah is a very great thing. It's Rosh Chodesh Tammuz. It's a very great thing to give tzedakah specifically in Rosh Chodesh. What's the highest level of charity? So most people think to give it to a very worthy, fitting, poor person. And that is a very high level of charity. To give it to someone in Eretz Yisrael, it's even higher. To give it to a Talmid Chacham, who is genuinely poor and would use that money to be able to go learn in the land of Israel, this is the highest. Okay? Aval. There's something that's even higher than this. That you teach a person a trade. You teach a person how to be able to support themselves. You give a person a way in which to be able to support their own family moving forward. That's a greater level of tzedakah. That's the highest charity that you can do for a person. Now, again, it's the same parallel. What would we think? Who is the kindest person in the world? That every time that I'm struggling and I need parnasa, I need help in my family, this person comes to to help me, right? So that person looks tremendously kind, and he is kind. But what's a greater level of compassion? That person brings me into his business. He gives me an opportunity to be able to support my own family, so I don't need to ask him anymore. So I can, with pride and feeling good about myself, to be able to take care of my own family and to feel like I have my own part that I'm playing in that. I have my own agency in that. That I don't feel so vulnerable, that I don't feel so scared all the time, that I don't feel so dependent, right? And I can actually assert and experience my own being, my own self. And so too here, everything that's happened so far, and there's been so many ups and downs in this story, all of it is leading to this point that this daughter of the emperor, which started out as a school child, falling in love with a boy, which was miraculous based on this promise of their parents that the parents forgot as well, and then running away with him and leaving this world and all these things that people are running after, deciding, I don't want that, I want Hashem. And the tzaddik is going to help me do that, and going out to sea with him, and having this amazing beginning, this inspirational beginning. And then before she knows it, she's in a forest. And it's filled with judgments there. And she loses her ring. She loses that promise from him. She loses that point of connection and attachment to him, to know that he loves her. He's not leaving her. They're going to get married in the end. And he goes to look for it, and she goes to look for it, and they can't find each other now. Now she's alone. And if you think that wasn't enough, she's fighting all of the evil forces in the world. She's mama's a superhero. But then through all of this, she's able to build her own boat. And that boat is beautiful, and it's glorious, and it's filled with the most unbelievable merchandise. Souls of Jewish people that have been trapped for so long, that have no way of getting out. Prayers that have been prayed with so many tears, with so much angst, with so much heartache, that have not been answered for so many years. And you don't even know that this guy in South Africa, his wife was finally able to give birth, that this person in England, right, her husband was finally released from jail where he was in prison for the wrong reasons, right, and the list goes on and on, all of these things. And you're driving this boat. You're sailing it to sea. You're in this ocean of Chokhmah. You did this all by finding within yourself, like we spoke about in the past. What's the point of the Nisayon? The point of the Nisayon is that you should see. You should see who you are. You should see. It's not for Hashem to see. Hashem already knows. It's for us to see what we're capable of. So now she is moving on. But like Rabbi Nachman explains, that whenever a person reaches a new madrega, reaches a new level, which obviously this is a new level for her, she has to go back and fight these same forces which she fought before, but at a higher level. So you might ask yourself, well, why does she have to do it at a higher level? Because she's at a higher level. And this is something that brought tremendous consternation to Rabbi Nachman's students, that when they finally connected to him, and they felt for the first time that they were truly in Avodat Hashem, that they were truly serving Hashem, that they were truly inspired, and they were truly making steps in their life to draw closer to Him, and yet they were struggling over and over again with these old things that they thought were gone. And Rabbi Nachman would continuously remind them, you don't know how much you're growing. And because you don't know how much you're growing, you don't realize that you're not in the same place as you were then. You're in a totally new place. You're in a much more elevated place. And that's why you're seeing these things again. And that's why you're fighting these demons again. Because these are not the same ones. This is in a higher world. You're at a higher madrega now. And Rabbi Nachman teaches in the Likutei Moharan that you have to go back now and you have to fight those same forces again. And those forces that you have to fight, in Kabbalah they explain there's 10 sfirot. So really when you're going up a new level, what does it mean? It means you have elevated through the 10 sfirot of that level. And then you have to come back again at the malchut of the next level. But the whole concept of malchut, it has no light of its own. So it's a feeling of darkness. It's a feeling of insecurity. It's a feeling of fear. It's a feeling of not having clarity in your life and feeling overwhelmed. And now what's the function of malchut? Why is there such a thing as malchut? That we should have faith. And like we've spoken about many times, when do I need faith? When I don't understand. So what am I not understanding? That I'm facing these challenges again. Why am I facing these challenges again? I don't understand. So here again, we're here for faith again. And once we are able to exert a higher level of faith, which we are now capable of, which we now have vessels for, which we now have internal resources to be able to lean on, that we don't know we have, but we do have, then we're able to break through again and to reach to another higher level. In that case, this woman sees the king, and this king is building palaces on the ocean. So as opposed to, this is another thought that I had, that as opposed to the first king, or the first situation where it's the son of a merchant, right? Okay, so there's a business going on, and the merchant is very successful, selling his wares all across the world, and the son now wants to do it. And like we have spoken about in the previous classes, and what has been bared out so far, is this merchandise which is being sold and which she is collecting is really fallen prayers of Jews, prayers that have been swallowed up by the Sitra Achra and taken as merchandise for him. souls of future Gerim that have been trapped in captivity, right? Those are all the things that were on this boat. And the son of this merchant, which is obviously from the other side, has now found this daughter and doesn't understand her. Just like Esther, right? Everybody thought she was from their culture, right? Whenever the Persians saw her, they thought she was Persian. When the Jews saw her, they thought she was Jewish. Wherever she was like a chameleon. Everyone thought that she was from them. It's hard to understand her because she's Esther, she's hidden, she's concealed. It's that concealment of her essence that allows her to continue to get captured. But that's on purpose. Because then she's able to reveal her Nekudat Tzaddik inside of her. That thing which is hidden in her, that with Mordechai you see, because he's pure, because he's holy, because when you see him, you see the Or of the Tzaddik in him. So he's not getting captured like that. But then you have this girl, who she doesn't seem like anything necessarily so special. She's struggling with all the same things that everybody else is. She's having those same challenges, maybe even more. So she looks like fair game for the other side. And she gets captured. But she is mamish burning inside with the Nekudat Tzaddik. And it's just the fact that it's hidden, it's concealed within her. That's why they don't know. But that's her superpower. That she's able to find it in that place. And in the next case, you see that there's a king now who traps her. So this boss, right, like I think about it like a video game. It works like this in a video game as well. You continuously fight the same enemies at each board, at each level, except the difficulty increases each time. In this case, it's a king. So that's a much higher level of chashivut. That's a much higher level of influence and importance, right? And he's building palaces. So what are these palaces that he's building? So similar to the first case, where the son of the merchant is gathering up these prayers that have fallen, gathering up these souls that are being imprisoned, right? So Rabbi Nachman explains that everything in this world is infused with Torah. Torah is the life force of everything. And when Jews do averot, when they do things which transgress the mitzvot in the Torah, so what is that? If the Torah and its life force, meaning Hashem, is infusing everything that's taking place, how could he be in something which is antithetical to his own desire? So Rabbi Nachman brings a chiddush based on Kabbalah, that the mitzvah itself that the person is transgressing, that mitzvah, the letters of it flip, and they go out of order. And in that case, the letters themselves, which are the life forces of everything, they still remain the life force of the Avera itself, except they're out of order now. But the life force that a person feels from the mitzvah comes from the fact that it's beseder, it's in order. So when a Jew does an Avera, when he does something which is antithetical to what the Torah asks of us, what Hashem wants from us, what his ratzon is, and him and his ratzon are one. When you do a mitzvah of Hashem, you're literally attached to him. You're in deveikud with him. You're connected to him at that moment. The Baal Tanya has a whole entire drasha exposition on the fact that when a person is doing a mitzvah, he has a higher level of deveikud with Hashem than even when he's learning the Torah. Because when he's learning the Torah, he is like seeing Hashem outside of him and trying to internalize it. But when he's doing a mitzvah, he is effectively, he is the vehicle through which Hashem's ratzon is being actualized. And in that sense, there is no disconnect between him and Hashem. This is bared out by the word mitzvah itself. If you use this gematria of atbash, right, you take the letters and you flip them around to the one which is corresponding to them, meaning you have an aleph. What's the corresponding letter at the end of the alphabet? It's taf. So you flip a taf for an aleph. And what about the second letter? You have a bet. So what's the corresponding letter? Second to last is shin. So that's why it's called atbash, right? So if you take a mem and you flip it, what's the corresponding letter? It's a yud. If you take a tzadi and you flip it, what's the corresponding letter? It's a hey. So what do you have? The first two letters of mitzvah, Mem and Tzadi become Yud and a Hey. And now what does it spell? Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. It spells Hashem. It spells Hashem's name. Mitzvah is a concealment of Hashem's name. Hashem is in the mitzvah itself, but it's hidden. That's the reason why he's called the Borei Olam, because the word Olam comes from the word Elim. Elim means concealment, means something that's hidden. Hashem is hidden in the mitzvah. And that we're gonna speak about in a moment when I get to the next part of the story about how does she work through this next difficulty and what are we trying to take from this lesson and to bring into this month of Tammuz and to really work on as we move forward. So what are these palaces that he's building? So Rabbi Nachman brings a story of Rabbi Barbara Chana that there is this fish, and these inhabitants are taking the bones of this fish to build a city. And essentially Rabbi Nachman is bringing the fact that this is the letters of mitzvot that have been rearranged not for the good. So all of these errors that the Jewish people are making, they're becoming building blocks for the Sitra Achra. And they're building these palaces. They're building these homes in which they have permanence in this world, in which they can live in that space. And again, this is connected to the avir, the air that's on top of the ocean. Rabbi Nachman says when you find a place to do Ibodedut, you should try to go to a place that nobody else is and that nobody else has been to. And he also says you should try to do it at a time when nobody's awake. Now these are very bizarre exhortations. Why does Rabbi Nachman want us to go to... I understand a place where nobody is. Why a place that nobody's ever been? And why does it matter if people are awake or they're not awake? They're not with me. So Rabbi Nachman explains that what people are yearning for, what people are desiring, what people are pining for, what they're striving for, is in the air. You can feel it. And so when you go to do Bodhidut, when you come to talk to Hashem, their yearnings, their desires are literally infused in the avir. They're in the air. And so when you come to pray, all of that is infiltrating your consciousness. So if you're in a place where people are chasing after money, or they're chasing after pleasure, or they're chasing after honor, or they're chasing after fame, all of those things, which everybody's doing, right? When you're in a place and you're praying in that place, you can literally feel it infusing you, where you don't have that same level of purity that you usually have. That when you come to pray, you don't feel that same, like, I just want Hashem. It has more to do with physical things. Man, I really like this, or man, I really love to be famous, or man, but like, where is that coming from? I want honor, I want fame. It's coming from the avir, it's coming from the air. So this is why the Gemara says that the air of the land of Israel makes you wise. Because the air of the land of Israel is pure. What's the reason? Because the Zohar says that the air of the land of Israel is drawn from the Jewish children who are learning in the Beit Midrash. And these Jewish children are without sin. They're without error. They're without being jaded. They're without being blemished. They're pure. They're whole. And the breath which they are infusing while they're learning is filling the air. And that is the air of the land of Israel. This is why Rabbi Nachman says when you give tzedakah, you should give tzedakah to those who are in the land of Israel. Why? Because then you become encompassed within the air of the land. Now why do you want to become encompassed in the air of the land? Because that air just wants Hashem. That air is pure. That air isn't filled with all of these fallen desires and fallen fears and fallen lackings, fallen wisdoms. It's something which is godly. It's something which is pure. It's something which is whole. Something which is true. So in this case, he is taking these errors, these mistaken notions, these fallen desires of Jewish people and making buildings out of it. These beautiful palaces. So again, we see that the daughter of the emperor is sent on another mission to go extract more trapped godliness, but at a higher level. Because in the past, it was just the son of a merchant. And all of his business was on the outside. But now she has to go to a place where he is established. He has a kingship. He has palaces, right? So obviously he has a tremendous more influence. And he is building something much bigger and having a much more deleterious effect on those Jews around him. Okay, so now we have to find out what happens to her, right? She does the same thing as she did last time. She says to him, listen, and again, he doesn't know who she is, that this is her superpower. That even though they find her, which is the vulnerable part of the situation, but on the other hand, because of the way she looks, she seems like she'll never be able to overcome whatever's going on with her. Maybe even she feels that way. But inside of her is something very deep, and it's something very strong, and it's something that no evil can break, can shake, can erase, can take away. It's something which is luminant and bright, and that thing always comes out. And Hester, this concealment becomes revealed, and she takes out all of these sparks of godliness that are trapped in whatever place that she gets captured. Melech lo haya la'isha, right? So she's not married, right? And now he thinks that she's a good person to marry. He doesn't realize she's the daughter of the emperor. Melech katav l'chol midanot. So what did the king do? He starts to write to all of the different medinas, all the different cities. Shikapsu v'yavu'u al chatuna shalah. To all come to this unbelievable wedding he's about to have with this woman who's riding a ship on her own. Uvana palatin b'shvila. And he decides to build palaces just for her. Tzivta shavi'u la achat esrei benot sarim shiuima. And he decides that he's going to appoint 11 noble women to be at her command, to do her bidding. V'tziva melech, and the king commands, v'shachu la achat esrei benot sarim gedoli ma'od. That they are very, very great noble women, these 11 noble women. Uvenu l'chol echad palatim miyuchad. And the king actually built for each of these 11 women a palace of their own. V'hi ayata la gam ken palatim miyuchad. And also for her, the daughter of the emperor, that he made her her own palace. So now there's 12 new palaces which are built for them. V'ayu mikapsot eleha. And they all gathered to her. Vayu mizamrot bichlei shir, and they were playing music on instruments. Misakim shamima, and they were being joyous with her. They were playing with her. Pa'am echat amar lahem. One time she said to them, Sheteilech imahem alayam, that they should go with her onto the sea. V'achu ima, so they came with her. And this obviously again, this was before the wedding. Vayu misakim sham, and they were playing on the boat together. Va'amar lahem, and she said to them, that she wants to honor them by giving them really good wine that's on her boat. So we see she's up to her old tricks again. She gave to them wine from the boat. And they got drunk. And they fell down and they lied there. And as soon as they were all drunk and passed out, she went to the side of the boat and she released the rope in which it was connected. And she fled from this beach land that she was on with the palaces, and she fled on the boat with the 11 noble women that were appointed to her. And the king and his men saw that the boat was gone. And they were really confused. And the king said, be careful that you shouldn't tell the daughter of the emperor, because he didn't know that the daughter of the emperor was on the boat, and didn't know that the noble women were on the boat. Just thought that the boat went missing. So he didn't want this woman who he's going to get married to get upset about the fact that this boat that was chashuv to her, that was precious to her, went missing without her knowing. So she wouldn't be disturbed by that. So this person who wants to marry her, this king, says to the people who are with him, make sure that when you tell her, you don't tell her quickly. Because this boat is very precious to her, and she's going to have tremendous pain from knowing that the boat was missing. Because the king didn't know himself that she had fled on the boat. And he thought that she was still in the palace that he had built just for her. Also, perhaps he thought that the king would give to one the boat. Only that they had taken these officers, one from the Banot. So he thought he would take to himself one of these daughters. One of these 11 princesses that have been appointed to her. Lagila b'chokhma, to tell her with chokhmah, to tell her with a level of wisdom, so that she doesn't get overwhelmed by it. So they went to one of those 11 palaces, and they didn't see the one of the noblewomen there. So they went to the second palace, and there was no noblewoman there either. They went to all 11 palaces, and they couldn't find any of them there. They couldn't find anybody. So they decided that they were going to send at the nighttime and just to tell her themselves. And they went to her palace, meaning the daughter of the emperor. And they couldn't find anybody there either. And they began to become very confused. And their father, the father of these 11 noblewomen, they would normally get letters from these girls. But now saw that even though they sent these daughters letters, these 11 girls letters, none of these daughters sent their letters back anymore. They stood up themselves and they traveled to find them. They couldn't find their daughters. And they became very, very angry. And they said that the king should be sent away and exiled. Because these people who were the fathers of these noblewomen, they were the princes of this place, of this kingdom. But then they thought to themselves, what did this king really do that he should be exiled from the land? What error did he really make? Because this happened against his will. And they decided that they were going to remove him from being the king and to expel him from the land. And that's what they did. And he went. So we have again another unbelievable turn of events. This daughter again is trapped, and she needs to find a deeper level of resourcefulness. This time, again, she uses what's been given to her by the difficulty itself against it. And here we see, like Rabbi Nachman teaches, that Hashem has two loves. He loves mishpat, he loves justice. He loves what's right. And he loves Yisrael. He loves the Jewish people. Rabbi Nachman says he loves the Jewish people more. And what's the nafkamina? How does that practically reflect itself? Because Rabbi Nachman says that by nature, right, the Gemara says that whenever anything happens, we should say this is for the good. Why? Because it is. So that's justice. But that doesn't mean that justice makes us feel good. Sometimes it feels bad. Sometimes it hurts. Sometimes it's difficult. And we don't understand why. So we say, Baruch Dayan Emet. That even though we don't understand, we believe that this is just, this is right. But Rabbi Nachman's Chiddush is that within that thing that's right, within that challenge itself, within that concealment, Hashem is hiding there. Why? Because even though He loves justice, He loves you more. And so in order to be able to keep consistent with both of these loves, He does live with justice. He does do the right thing. But within that right thing, He will hide Himself there so that you can find Him within the difficulty itself. You will find Hashem Gam Sham, also there, hiding there. And the chiddush that we're learning now is, the novelty that we're learning now is, that it's bedavka, the justice, the difficulty itself, that itself is giving you the resources to find Him at a new level. That in the first case, it is Him being her being trapped on this boat and having to move into a din tefillah. Where did that din tefillah come from? The din tefillah came bedavka from the fact that she felt so constricted. And now in this case, she is given these 11 noble women. And she uses them to leave that place. And what we're going to see is that those 11 noble women are her next added thing which she is extracting from the Sitra Achra. And it also alludes to how she gets out of this situation, how she moves out. So now what I want to do is I want to look at the Torah in the Likutei Moharan. This is Torah Chaf Dalet. I'm going to look at a few pieces of it, and we're going to explain it out and to try to show what the connection is and what we should be working on. Okay? This Torah lesson was given in the summer of 1803. So we're in the summer right now. This is 2023. So this was literally 220 years ago to the day. Okay? A large number of Rabbi Nachman's followers came to be with him. And while delivering this discourse on Shabbat, the Rebbe was in such a state of awe and emotion that his Hasidim didn't understand anything he was saying. And in fact, when he was giving over this teaching, his awe was so intense in his face, his level of hergish, his emotion was so high, that he covered his face with a kerchief so nobody could see him. But when they looked to the side to try and see his face, they literally saw like an or, a glow that was coming from it. And because they couldn't understand the lesson as he was giving it, because he was in such a state of devekud, that is, he was in such a level of yirat shamayim, such a level of awe of Hashem, that only after Shabbat was over that Rabbi Nachman actually wrote the lesson out, was Rav Natan able to write the lesson down. And if you read the lesson itself, it's a very high lesson. It's a very deep lesson. We're not going to get into all the depths and the heights of it, but we are going to move into the practical points that are taken out from this lesson. So he begins and he brings over a Ad Gemara in Masechet Brachot. This is Daf Chet Amud Bet. Amru le em sauta de alma heicha. They asked him, where is the center of the world? Zakva le'etzba'ate. He pointed up with his finger, and he said to them, Hacha, it's here. Amrule, mi emar. And they said to him, well, who says so? How do you know that? Amar, ayet toshalchu umoshchu. They said, bring a measuring rope and let's measure it. And Rabbi Nachman says like this, Da, you should know, sheyesh or, there's a light. Shu lamala min nafshin v'ruchin v'nishmatin. It's a light which is higher than the nefesh. It's higher than the lowest level of your soul. It's higher than the ruach. It's higher than the second level of one's soul. V'nishmatin, it's higher than the neshama, the intellectual faculty of the soul, the highest level of the conscious soul. Or Ein Sof, it's the light of the Ein Sof itself. And even though that's impossible for the human intellect to apprehend it, even so, it doesn't stop one's mind from chasing after it. And it's through this chasing after the light of the Ein Sof, even though it's not able to comprehend it, then the intellect is able to apprehend it in the concept of mati v'lo mati, in the concept of touching but not touching. This is based on a very, very deep exposition in the Kitvei Ari and the Eitz Chaim, where the Arizal is speaking about this concept of touching and not touching, of apprehending and not apprehending. Ki be'emet efshar la'asigoto, because in truth it's impossible to apprehend the light of the Ein Sof. Ki hu lamala men nefesh ruach nishma, because it's higher than every level of your conscious soul. V'da, but you should know. She'efshar la'asigoto afilu b'vchinat mati v'lo mati, that it's impossible to apprehend this light of the Ein Sof, even at the level of touching and not touching, which is capable. You are capable of that. Ela ayadei asiyat hamitzvot b'simcha, except through doing the mitzvah with joy. Except through doing the mitzvot with joy. When Rabbi Nachman says that it's a mitzvah gedolah to be b'simcha always, he doesn't just mean when things are going great. He doesn't just mean when things are all going your way. He means b'davka, when they're not. And specifically, when is the point in which you have the most powerful capacity to apply joy? It's b'davka in a mitzvah. It's the simcha that you infuse within a mitzvah. What happens when you are happy when you do a mitzvah? When you're happy when you pray, when you're happy when you learn, when you're happy when you're kind to another person, when you force yourself to be happy, to be smiling, when you give tzedakah to somebody. What happens when you're happy when you do those mitzvot? Ki ayidei simcha mitzvah, because through the joy of a mitzvah, nishlama kedusha, you perfect and you make whole holiness. So here we have an unbelievable thing. A person is striving to be holy. A person is striving to be close to Hashem. A person is really trying to talk to Hashem every day. He's really trying to get up early in the morning to connect to Him in Chatzot. He's really trying to learn the Torah of the Tzaddik. He's trying to apply the Eitzot of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. And there is a tremendous level of Kedusha that he's applying. He's really exerting himself. But there's one thing that's missing. Simcha. Joy. Why is it the last thing to come? Why is it that the thing that seemingly is avoiding me, it's evading me, I can't find it, I can't touch it, I can't get it? Because it's the perfection of holiness. The perfection of Kedusha comes with joy. That's why it's the last thing to come in. There comes Rabbi Nachman to say that there's two levels of joy. One is higher than the other. There's a level of joy that you are simply happy. And that's great. But there's a level of joy that's higher than that. That is that I take sadness itself and I grab it and I force it into joy and I flip it into happiness. That even amidst my challenge right now, I take the mitzvah and I apply and I exert joy within the mitzvah. I force myself to dance and sing when I do the mitzvah. I take whatever's going on in my life and I say, you know what? It's for later. Right now, I'm doing a mitzvah. And I'm going to do it with simcha. I'm going to do it with happiness. That's a higher level of joy than if I wasn't struggling. That's a higher level of joy than if I didn't have sadness. It's the taking of sadness and ripping it and turning it into joy. That is the highest level of joy. Not only that, it's the perfection of all of holiness. And this is why Mashiach is the letters of Yismach, that he will make happy, that he will be happy. Why? Because joy is the perfection of all holiness. For us to have Geula, we need joy. And like Rabbi Nachman famously said, based on the pasuk in Yeshaya that says that we are going to go out of exile with joy, speaking about the days of Mashiach, that we're going to leave behind Galut, that we're going to leave behind exile. Rabbi Nachman says, don't read it like that. You're missing the sod, you're missing the secret. Yeshaya is saying, when will we go out? When we have simcha, when we're happy. Not that we're going to be happy when we leave, but through joy we're going to leave. And this was the great chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov. What is with the craziness of the Baal Shem Tov? Why is he obsessed with Judaism being filled with joy? And why does Rabbi Nachman take this and literally smash it into your heart to be happy, to always be happy? Like Rabbi Nachman told Rav Natan, as Rav Natan was finishing his binding of Likutei Moharan. So this was in 1805, 5 years before Rabbi Nachman passed away, when he was 33 years old. They had finally finished the first section of Likutei Moharan, and Rav Natan was the one who brought it together and collected it and put it in its order. And they were at the final stage now, the binding of the book. And during that entire week, Rav Natan said that Rabbi Nachman kept encouraging him to be happy always, to be happy always. And he kept telling him every day throughout that week, because Natan really struggled with this, to be happy. And Rabbi Nachman had to keep reminding him how important it was, and how Rabbi Nachman once told Rav Natan that the whole world would benefit if you were happy. And then all of a sudden, what happens? He finally binds the book. And he brings it to Rabbi Nachman, and it's done. And Rabbi Nachman told Rabbi Nachman told Rabbi Natan, you might feel like this binding of this book is a small matter, but you need to know that worlds and worlds depend on this. And once the book was finally done and he completed it, Rabbi Nachman said, you're still not happy. And then he told Rabbi Natan, one day you're going to know my greatness. And I was thinking a lot about this. What's the connection of Natan struggling with being happy? Probably because he has Shalom Bayit issues, probably because he's having trouble supporting himself financially, probably because he's dealing with doubts, probably because he's struggling to make growth spiritually. What does knowing the greatness of the tzaddik have to do with being happy? Why is that going to make him happy? Why, if one day Rav Natan really truly knows how great Rabbi Nachman is, he's going to finally be happy? And then I really came to, I feel like, a clarity in this, at least at some level. If Rav Natan really knew this book, the Likutei Moharan, that he binded, that because of Rav Natan, the wisdom and the advice and the light of the tzaddik would go around the world. And if he knew that over the course of the next 200 years, how many thousands and thousands and thousands of people's lives would not just be helped, but would be saved. That people would die if it were not for this book. That me, David Kalmus, in 2020, would not have survived his depressive episodes, would not have made it out of the psych ward if he didn't bind that book. If he would have known the greatness of the light of the tzaddik, if he would have known how great Rabbi Nachman was, he would have known how important it was, what he was doing by being connected to such a tzaddik, and by serving him, and by trying to bring his light chutza to help Jews across the world. And he knew that there was nothing more important in the world. There was nothing more important. That it would literally bring Geula. It would literally bring redemption. If you really knew that, would you be sad? I don't think so. You have athletes that they get up early in the morning, 3 a.m., and they're training for hours. And they're putting in all this effort. And there's this level of joy, and this level of feeling enthralled, and this level of excitement. And it's infusing every day. And what's the reason? They don't have problems at home. They don't have troubles. They don't have difficulties. Where's this excitement coming from? Where's this happiness coming from? Because they feel the immensity of their purpose in their life. And it's coming from putting a ball through a hoop. And we, that we're Jews, and Badavka, we, that we're students of this great tzaddik, that we've been sent to this world to spread the light of the tzaddik chutza, to bring it to those children who have no recourse, they have no way to find their way back to Hashem. And Rabbi Nachman is the only one who has the light that they need, that can wake them up from their slumber, that can give them a derech back home, that can make them feel that they're not an alien, that they're loved, that there's hope, that Hashem is hidden even within the darkness of that place which they are trapped in. And they can make their way all the way back, and they can bring everyone back with them. Would you be sad? Would I be sad? How much more would we be excited to get up in the morning? How much more would we be excited to send out the light of the tzaddik to others on WhatsApp and to send out messages of hope and encouragement? How much more excited will we be to have sichot averim in this, to speak to our friends about what we're doing with this, how we're growing in this, what we're doing to make steps in this? How much more so we'll be excited to learn the Torah of the tzaddik, to make chidushim on it, to write them out and to give them to others? How much more excited we'll be to apply the advice of the tzaddik? If you really know the greatness of Rabbi Nachman, you know the levels that he achieved, you know what he was brought to this world for at some level, which is, at the very least, to save Klal Yisrael. And at the very most, who knows? Like Rabbi Nachman said, I am a mystery. I am a complete chiddush. Nobody knows why I'm here. How excited we would be. How happy we would be in every mitzvah that we did. And you see this with Breslauer Hasidim. When you have the zchut to go to Uman, you see people who are truly happy in doing the mitzvahs. They're happy in it. They're excited to do it. They can't wait to do it. To do the ratzon of the king. They really feel like the children of the king. They no longer feel like the servants who are trapped and sent into exile, and they feel loved. They feel hope. They feel part of something very, very special. I heard once that there are these real Breslovers in Mei Sharim, and they they work like these long hours, and they barely have time to learn. The only thing that they're able to say each day was a letter of Rav Natan, which literally you can read in 20 seconds. And I heard a story about one of them, like in the morning they prayed Shachrit, and then one of them screamed to all the other Hasidim, guys, I found the letter of Rav Natan. Rav Natan wrote me a letter. And everybody got excited, they couldn't believe it. This Chassid found a new letter of Natan that we never saw. It was written to him, and then all of a sudden he takes out a Lim Terufa, Rav Natan's letters, and he just reads one of the letters from there. And they were all so happy, and it gave them chiyut for the whole day. It gave them excitement for the whole day. That he really felt like Rav Natan wrote him a letter. Because he did. He felt such joy in being a Breslauer Chassid. He felt such pride in this. That he's a makasher to the greatest tzaddik. And this is what Rabbi Nachman was trying to tell him. One day you're going to know how great I am. And then you'll be happy. Because joy can come from this one thing alone. Umala achiyut v'akadusha shebeklipot. And the reason why joy perfects holiness is because it's trapped in the sitra achra. It's trapped in the klipot. It's trapped in the husks. It's the chiyut of the husks is your joy. And that's why it's hard for you to access it, because it's trapped. But when you elevate it by forcing yourself to be happy when you do the mitzvot, that's the concept of the Echad Asar Samane HaKetoret, the 11 spices of the Ketoret. Now remember, how many noble women was the daughter of the emperor able to take with her on the boat? 11. How did she get those 11 women? Meaning, how did she get those 11 spices of the Ketoret? Meaning, how did she take out joy from the Sitra Achra? She was only able to do it because, again, she got trapped. Because, again, she was forced into captivity. Again, she was moved into a place against her will. But it's through this she was able to take out joy from the other side. Now, how was she able to take it out from the Sitra Achra? It's bedafka because she wasn't happy. That's how she's able to take it out. You can't take it out if you're happy, because if you're happy, it's already out. So where is your koach coming from? Again, it's a paradox. Hashem loves justice, but He loves you more. So He hides Himself into the place. It's bedafka because you're struggling with joy that you're able to find it. Because if it's not missing, you can't find it. Now where is it missing? It's in the husks. Your joy is literally giving life force to the other side. But you can rip it out from there. And that's the ketoret. Because the klipot are the concept of excess. That they are the concept of depression or sadness. Like the pasuk says in Mishlei, B'chol etzev yeh motar. In all sadness there's excess. V'hem takba dedina. That there's a strength of judgment in that place as a result. B'vchinat v'yitatzev el libo. Like Hashem said on the generation, that He was saddened to His heart. Ve'ikar simcha hu b'lev. But the essence of joy is in the heart. K'moshe katuv, v'natata simcha v'libi. Natata simcha v'libi. You have placed joy in my heart. V'galut Shechina, and He exiled the Shechina, the exile of the divine presence. Shu b'chinat alev, that He's the concept of the heart. Shu simchatan shel Yisrael, that heart is the joy of the Jewish people. It's the joy of every single Jewish man and woman. That heart is what's in exile. That joy is what's in exile. Iker galuta, the essence of one's personal exile and the essence of the exile of the Jewish people. It's when sadness and depression strengthen on a person. Meaning when the klipot strengthen on a person. And the concept of that it was saddened to his heart. But thus it's written that when the Jewish people go out from exile, when you go out from exile, Yeshaya, it says, Ki v'simcha tetzeu, with joy they will go out. And like we just said, what does that mean? Not that I'm going to go out and then I'm going to be happy, but b'simcha, with simcha tetzeu, with joy I'm going to go out. V'shvilzeh, and because of this, al yedei ketoret, it's through the ketoret itself, ma'alin me'klipot chiotam, I'm able to draw up and elevate all the joy which is the life force of the Sitra Achra. My sadness is giving them power. How is my sadness giving them power? Because they have my joy, and my joy is their chiyut. But when I'm able to rip it up from there through the concept of ketoret, through these 11 spices, then I not only draw out their life force, but I bring up all the sparks of godliness that are trapped there. Like it's brought, Ketoret Yisamach Lev. The pasuk says, Shlomo Melech says, Ketoret makes the heart happy. It elevates the joy from the place of excess, from the place of the klipot, where the judgment is strongest. Nimsa, consequently, Keshoseh mitzvah b'simcha. Like when you do a mitzvah with joy, Azai Malei Shechina, you lift up the Shechina. So every time that you force yourself to be happy in the midst of doing a mitzvah, you are doing and making ketoret. It's elevating the joy from the place of the other side. And you're elevating the Shekhinah from exile. Because the Shekhinah is the mitzvah. Like we just said, that mitzvah is Yud Kei Vav Kei in Atbash, right? So what is a mitzvah? When you do a mitzvah, that's literally Hashem. And when you do a mitzvah with joy, that's the concept of the Shekhinah is out from the darkness. Is out from Galut. She went out with joy. Whose joy? Your joy. She simchat alev, that's the happiness of the heart. Mibein klipot, that's trapped within the klipot. Usha adam oseh is a mitzvah. When a person does a mitzvah like this, yesh koach b'mitzvah. There's power in this mitzvah. Leilech loreh koa olamot, to arouse all of the worlds. This physical world and all the spiritual worlds, Lavodat Hashem Yiparach, to want to serve Hashem. Like the pasuk says, Binarenu vizkanenu nelech betzonenu vikarnenu nelech. With our children and elders we will go out. With our sheep and cattle we are going to go. Meaning, through this joy that you have aroused in doing the mitzvah, you are taking out all of the good. You're lifting up all of the joy which has been trapped in exile, which we know now, the mitzvah is the Shekhinah herself. And by doing it with joy, We're lifting up the Shekhinah out with joy. That's Geula. And as a result of that, it causes all the worlds to be aroused to want to serve Hashem. That includes your children. That includes your parents. That includes your family members. That includes your friends. That includes all the Jewish people. And now, what is it about Ketoret? What is so special about Ketoret? Why is that the concept of doing a mitzvah with joy? Why does that elevate joy from sadness? How am I able to rip sadness into joy through Ketoret? Ketoret is 11 spices. 10 of those spices smell really, really good. One of those spices is the worst, most foul-smelling spice. It's called galbanum. And the Torah says that if you're missing one of these spices, meaning let's say you think to yourself, well, maybe it would be a better smell if I just used the 10 smells and I didn't put this really foul-smelling smell in it. I just want to be happy. I don't want any negativity in my life. I don't want to have to draw from the negativity. I don't want to have to look at it. I just want to let it go. I want to remove it from my life. I just want to put the good in. Halacha teaches, the Gemara teaches, chayev mitah. A person who makes a ketoret without one of these spices, even just this really foul-smelling spice, not only did you not fulfill the mitzvah of ketoret, you have a judgment of death on you. It's the highest level of a punishment. Chayav mitah. You need to have this foul-smelling smell in your ketoret. Now, why do you need that? So I've spoken about this in the past, and I've meditated a lot on this. What if Rabbi Nachman says the key to being happy? A zamra. To find, to locate, to rummage, and to search for all of your good points. And to search and to find one, and to search and to find another one, to search and to find another one, search and find another one. And when you actually practice this, right, and you say it out loud, and by the way, just as like a side note, in the men's group, one of the guys had a experience that he shared with us, which I've had that experience as well, and I just want to share it for the women in the group. That he was saying that when I'm saying like, oh, I'm proud of myself for doing this, and I feel good that I did this, and here's another good point of mine. He said it always felt foreign to him, and he didn't understand like how to feel happy from it. He wasn't feeling the joy from it, but instead he started to say his own name, like speaking to himself, almost like in the third person. So I'll do it as, I'm not gonna say his name, but I'll do it like for myself. David, you did such a good job with this mitzvah. David, you did such a good job holding on. David, I'm so proud of you that you never gave up. David, it's amazing that you keep going despite the fact that you're struggling right now. David, it's unbelievable that you've decided to live with the truth of truths, even though it's a path less traveled, right? And he said that when I started to do that, it made such a release for me. It felt so much more authentic. And I've had that experience as well. And it was by accident. It was just like, kind of like for him, it just organically came up. When you do Ibodut enough, you start to, experiment with things, try different things, it just comes up on its own, it wells up out of you, right? So this is something to try as well. Now, a person might think to himself, if I just found good, that would be the best. I would be truly happy. But Rabbi Nachman says that, like the Gemara says that joy comes from song, right? There's no joy that's not deeply, intricately connected to music. But Rabbi Nachman says that music is good notes on the backdrop of bad notes. Right? What is a song? A song is that you have notes that you pick out, and they are on the backdrop of notes that you choose not to because it doesn't sound good with it. But if you don't have notes that don't sound good with it, you can't make a song. It's specifically that I am picking out this light in the backdrop of darkness. That's music. That's where joy comes from. And that's the reason as well that joy is with the Levi'im, it's taught in Kabbalah. It's on the left side, which is the side of darkness. Joy comes from that side. So does wine. All of it is from the left side. All of it is from the side of concealment. It's all from the side of darkness. Music comes from that place. That's what the Leviim are able to sing. And the word Levi means to connect. That's what Leah said after she had Levi. Now my husband is really going to be attached to me because we had this son. And who comes from Levi? Moshe comes from Levi. Aaron comes from Levi. Miriam comes from Levi. All the Kohanim in history come from him. Now, what is Ketoret? It's 10 Nekuda Tovas, it's 10 good points, and it's one foul-smelling point. Now, if a person looks at the negativity in their life, that's how they start their Hibodadu. That's how they look first. They won't find joy from it. But if they can truly find good points within themselves and allow themselves to experience it, even if it means talking to yourself in the third person, you are a hero. You never gave up. You are still trying after all of these years. You are a Jew. You are a child of the King. And then you say to yourself, and I'm struggling in this thing. You can actually access a higher level of happiness than if you had no negativity whatsoever. Because the good points lift up and rip out the good which is trapped in the bad point, in the foul-smelling point. And in Kabbalah, that foul-smelling point is connected to Malchut. It's the Shekhinah which is trapped in exile. And the way that I think about it, like when I try to visualize it, is Rabbi Nachman says that I want my Hasidim, that when they see that they're dancing, and they see somebody sitting down, he doesn't want to dance. He's sad, he doesn't feel like it, right? So in the modern world, the main thing to do, the most respectful thing to do, the most empathetic thing to do would be to leave him there, right? To respect his feelings. So Rabbi Nachman said, no. That's the least empathetic thing that you can do. You know why? Because this person's trapped right now. You know what you really need to do? You 10 happy Jews, you got to take that one unhappy Jew and you need to rip him into your circle with you. Because there's going to be a couple things that happen. One is that it's going to make him happy. And he can't trust his thoughts right now. He can't trust his feelings right now because he's trapped in the husks. So rip him into joy. But I want to tell you something even greater. He's going to benefit you. You know why? Because you 10 are happy. Great, you've achieved some type of level. You really feel the chashivut of yourself. You really feel the chashivut of being sons of the King, daughters of the King. You really feel the importance and the preciousness of being a chassid of the tzaddik. But this person doesn't. And you know what happens? When you are doing it on your own without him, you're happy. And that's great. But you know what's a higher level of happiness? You know what's real joy? When you take this person who's not happy and you bring him into your happiness. When you lift up unhappiness into happiness. That is a much higher level of joy. And that is taking the Shekhinah out from exile. And with that, we can look at our negative points in a whole different view. It's specifically through those points of darkness that I am able to achieve the highest level of joy. Because it's a higher level of joy to rip sadness into joy than it is to just be happy. That true happiness is ketoret. It is 10 spices that smell amazing, but there is one really bad smelling spice. And you can't remove it from there. Because if not, it's not ketoret. And you won't be truly happy. True happiness comes on the backdrop of darkness. Music comes through the blackness, which is coming behind those good notes, those beautiful sounding notes. But it needs darkness. It needs you to extract the good ruach from the bad ruach. This is Ketoret. And Ketoret, Rabbi Nachman teaches in the 13th Torah, is related to the keter, to the crown. It's the highest level. It's the highest madrega. Doing mitzvahs with simcha is the highest level possible. And that's why it's at the ikar of Chassidus. But it's not what you think. It's not that I'm happy and therefore I'm going to do it. Bezrat Hashem one day. It's bedavka that I'm not happy and I'm forcing myself to be happy in the mitzvah. That itself is arousing all of the worlds to come back to Hashem. This is the release of the Shekhinah, the elevation of the Shekhinah from exile. Simcha shel mitzvah. So Bezrat Hashem, with the month of Tammuz coming in, this is the month of sight, it's the month of vision. Rabbi Nachman teaches that vision is the concept of hashgacha pratit, of divine providence. And Rabbi Nachman teaches in the 13th Torah, Likutei Moharan, that the closer you come to Torah, the more divine providence you draw on yourself. And that the Torah is the water, it's the ocean on which that the Ruach of Elohim is hovering over, which is the tzaddik. And so by being truly connected to the tzaddik, by feeling the chashivut of being his or her chassid, and by spreading those well springs out with inspiration, with excitement, with chashivut, with pride, I'm able to have simcha shel mitzvah. I'm able to have the highest level, the keter, the crown. I'm able to have ketoret. To take whatever's going on in my life that's a sticking point, that's a point of darkness, and I'm able to surround it with all these beautiful good points. But how do you feel all those good points? You have to be able to see them. And we have that capacity in Tammuz, because this is the time that you can see. This is the time of seeing. So this is an amazing prayer to have on Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, and we have 2 days of it, Baruch Hashem, today, to pray in our Hipodadut, to really pour Har Hashem, Hashem, help me to see good. Help me to see the good in myself. Help me to see the good in others. Help me to have a proliferation of good points, so that I can not avoid the thing that I'm struggling with, but I can buttress it. I can put those things together. Because ultimately, I can reach a higher level of joy by having these negative points, if I could see the good. Help me to see the good. Help me to focus exclusively on the good. And when I come to do a mitzvah bedavka, that I'm going to force myself to be happy, and I'm going to flex this muscle. It takes practice. It feels weird in the beginning, because there's a comfort in being sad. I'm used to that. It doesn't feel right to allow myself to be happy. I want to feel bad about myself right now. I want to feel guilty right now. I want to feel regret. I want to feel angry. I want to feel despair. But you have to force yourself to be happy in that place. Specifically when I come to do the mitzvah. And then you will see, you will lift up the Shekhinah from the dust. And you will have a higher level of joy than even a person who doesn't struggle with sadness at all. And then you get to see why Hashem put us in these places. And why Hashem made the daughter of the emperor have to go and get trapped again by an even stronger entity, because she's able to take out the ketoret with her. She's able to take out real joy that she could live the rest of her life with, and to share with her friends and family around her. Does anybody have any questions from this class? Any questions, statements? Okay, listen. I see that this is a majority of women in this class. Please, make renewed efforts to speak in your group. I cannot tell you how important it is to do sichot averim. I know sometimes it's frustrating and it's disappointing when people aren't responding in the way that you would hope that they would, or they're not as excited as you are. Just do it anyway. Do it anyway. Because you are going to benefit so much. Rabbi Nachman even says that there are times when you are building up this mochin, which is transcendent. It's called or makif. But it can't enter into your mind. You can't receive that light because you still have old mochin. You have to release it. Rabbi Nachman says, how do you release it? By sharing what you know with others. By sharing your perspective with others, by sharing your experience with others. then you release this old mochin, and you're able to draw a new mochin into your mind, into your seichel, into your intellect. And that is where joy comes from. That's where excitement comes from. That's where life force comes from. So look at it like, it's not just about how people respond. And this is good practice in general. To be able to be self-motivated. That I don't need external resonance from others in order for me to feel good about what I'm doing. I'm going to go do this because this is the highest ratzon. This is the ratzon of Hashem. This is the ratzon of my Rebbe. And this is the highest level of service of Hashem. And eventually, if I keep doing it, you will see fruit from it. You will see the most unbelievable treasures from it. And the men in the men's group right now, Baruch Hashem, they're really connected. And they're really talking. And it's unbelievable because men are not usually like that, thank God. And the women in the beginning were like that. But it's so important. When this month's now the summer months. This month we're going to be working on seeing. Next month we're going to be working on hearing. Then we're going to have Elul, which is the most powerful month to make spiritual progress. When I'm my beloved is to me. And then we have Rosh Hashanah, where everything flips. So it's so important during these next few months to really connect with each other, talk with each other. And Bezrat Hashem, b'schut all of that, we are going to be able to draw new light into our soul, into our hearts, into our minds, to go out with joy. Everybody have a great week. Rosh Chodesh Tov, guys.